Are you fulfilling God's purpose for your life? Or have you allowed distractions or maybe doubts or fear to hold you back from fulfilling your destiny? Sometimes we have big ideas of what our destiny should be like, and we're just waiting for that one event that's going to propel us there. And we're missing out on opportunities that God is giving us today that will prepare us for that. I have a beautiful conversation today with a guest who has written a book about breaking forth through our destiny. And it's just a lovely conversation that will maybe help you think about where you are and what steps you might need to take to fulfill your destiny. I hope you'll join us. Welcome to Longing for More, where Christians come to strengthen their faith, revive their soul, and learn to live their lives with a sense of fulfillment and peace. Listen each week to learn how to incorporate your faith into your daily activities, stop wandering through life feeling empty and unfulfilled, and begin to live your more. Let's get started. So everyone, as I promised, I have a new friend on the show today. Dr. Bren Williams is here today, and thank you so much for joining us here. I'm just excited to have this conversation, learn more about you, and share what you're up to with my listeners today. So what I'd like to do is start out, just have you tell us a little bit about you, if you would.
Well, Vona, thank you so very much for having me on your show. It's an honor as well as a privilege. And so I'm just delighted to come on and just to share and have a conversation with you. I am from the eastern part of the country here in the Hampton Roads area of Chesapeake, Virginia. I am an author. I am a pastor. I am an evangelist. I travel in the country, out of the country, and also work with a nonprofit organization called Positive Impact. So I wear many hats.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And from what I understand from the little bit that I got to dig into before we hopped on the call, your mission really is just to get the word out. I mean, evangelism is your thing, right?
Absolutely. Perhaps, there's so many more opportunities in this day and time to get the message out. The message has not changed, but the methodology in which we share the word has certainly been enhanced. And so not only through books or the spoken word, there are just so many other opportunities to be able to share rather than always being in person. So I'm excited about those new opportunities.
And this is a perfect example of that, a podcast and the opportunity for someone to put us in their ear, in an earbud, and listen while they're doing the dishes or driving down the highway or whatever is just really expanded that opportunity to have what I call meaningful conversations.
Absolutely. Without a doubt.
Yeah. Yes. And I think to me, it's so important in today's world because there's so many, because of all the things you've talked about, the opportunities that have expanded so much, there's also the opportunity for misinformation to get out there.
And also the fact that we're living in a much busier time. So people can actually maximize the time. You are empowering yourself. You're learning something. You're being enlightened, particularly through the podcasts. And so I love the opportunity to do podcasts whenever I have an opportunity.
Well, good. And I'm just so thrilled that you're here. So what I'd like to do is dive in a little bit. Let's start with the book. Tell us a little bit about your book and what if I were to, and I apologize because I haven't, but if I were to open that up today, what would be the resounding message I would learn from that?
The book is entitled Breaking Forth to Destiny, and it really starts with the premise that God has a plan and a purpose for all of our lives. And, we were created on purpose and for a purpose. And oftentimes in life, we face many obstacles, many challenges, and there comes a point where we need to break through situations or break free from something. And many people will get to the breakthrough point, but sometimes they don't always break forth. And this book is about breaking forth after you've come through the challenges, after you have overcome some of the obstacles, there's more, there is simply more. And it's really challenges us to break forth to our greatest self, to be the very best me, the very best you that God has destined us to be.
Oh, I love that. And of course, with a podcast named Longing for More, we
Yes.
love using that word. And what I always really like to stress is that the world would have us believe that more that our soul is longing for is entirely different than the more that we gain when we go all in with Jesus, right?
I agree. I agree. Because in having the more of Him, it allows us to have that abundant life. It allows us to have access to more of everything. We're so blessed to have the privilege to, be under a heaven that's open unto us. And oftentimes we don't realize that there is more. We get to a certain level and we become content, but there's always more in God.
Well, and I'd like to dig into that a little bit, because I really literally just listened to an episode on my Abide app this morning, and we have to be really careful with the word content, I believe, because there's a pull in the world to have us think that we always have to be busier and pushing harder and striving and all of that. And so there's that dissatisfaction
Right.
of when our soul really is longing for more abundance, more of God's abundance,
Mhm.
versus that longing for, the bigger job, the
Right.
promotion, the fancier car, and all of that. And so we have to kind of take a step back and use some discernment before we step into that, right?
That's a very interesting perspective. And I agree. Oftentimes we are seeking to fulfill the more, looking for the career, seeking the job, seeking more money and those things. But that void is really just a void for more of God, more of His peace, more of His joy, just more of Him, more of His presence. And so there is a fine line between the world's definition of more and more in God.
Yeah. And so to take then what you were saying about your book a step farther, though, is when we start getting filled up with that peace that comes from following God, listening to the Holy Spirit, being obedient, we're going to be sometimes called to stretch ourselves,
Mhm.
and that destiny that He has for us, or fulfilling that plan that He has for our lives, sometimes causes us to step outside of anything we ever imagined that we were made for, right?
Yes, you said a key word, stretch. And so anything that's evolving and becoming and growing, it's going to require change. It's going to require that level of stretch. And so we have to get to a place in our spiritual walk where we become more comfortable in uncomfortable places. We have to step out of the familiar, oftentimes into the unfamiliar, as we stretch in God.
Yeah. Yeah. So can you give us an example of maybe either in your life or someone you've worked with where they kind of got to that place where it was like, oh geez, he's asking me to do this. And I don't know if you need a minute to think about it, but I can tell in my story that was, I had a really amazing career,
Mhm.
and just started to get that longing inside of me, that knowing that there was something more. And I literally took the early retirement as early as I could, which was a big jump for me to take. When you retire at 55, you leave a lot of money on the table. And so it was a
Yes.
huge jump for me to make
Mhm.
that move. And it really took a lot of trust. But can you think of a story with you or someone you've worked with where that's happened?
Sure. My career, my background is that I was in the pharmaceutical industry for about 18 years. And so I was constantly promoting HIV medicines and just life-saving medicines. And it was fulfilling for many years. In my latter quarter, I was at the entire state of Virginia. And so I was constantly traveling. I would go from one end of Virginia to the other end of Virginia. And on those long drives, the Lord just began to speak to me about the more that, he was shifting my assignment, that there was more that he wanted, from me. And I was on a 5-hour drive one day, and I drove 5 hours all the way to only have about 5 minutes with a physician and then drive 5 hours back. And I said, God, there must be more. And so it was at that point that God really began to speak to me about ministry. And, I'm trying to think, how am I going to make this happen? I can't work a full-time job and go to school. And God opened the door for me to go to seminary. Right shortly after that, the company downsized the division that I was in. I was able to get a severance, and I was able to go back to school and really devote my full time to ministry. And I thought I'd be out for a couple months and I'd go back into pharmaceuticals. It would just be a shift of companies, but God never opened that door again. I would apply for job after job, but God never opened the door again. And so he definitely redirected me to the ministry, the pull of where he was leading me. So it required a tremendous stretch because, I was accustomed to a certain salary. I was, accustomed to many of the comforts of working in corporate America. So this has been a tremendous sacrifice, but it's been so rewarding. And, I am so happy. There's a level of satisfaction that comes with walking in obedience.
Yeah. Yeah. And you really stated that well. And it's kind of one of those things. I don't know about you, but there are times when it's hard not to want to look at what we left behind.
Yes.
Go, it's like, I know that this is the path you want me on. But for me personally, it's like, I guess I've laughingly said, God lured me away with the promise I was going to make millions of dollars as an author and a coach and all those things. And that just hasn't happened. And I'm okay with that because
okay.
I love my life and I'm just walking the walk that he's asked me to walk. And
yes,
it's not over yet. Right.
Right. Absolutely. Yes. I feel the same way. I feel like I'm right where he would have me to be. I think of all the bonuses and all of the perks that I had. I wish I had some of those in this season.
Right.
God does all things well.
Exactly. So I think it's okay. If there's someone listening today that is feeling that pull to making a change, it's that season where it's like, well, I'm really comfortable here, but God's calling me to something different. My destiny has shifted, or I'm just now realizing, because sometimes it's walking the path to get all of the experiences we need in the various areas before it's time. We can't the fine line before you don't jump until you're ready, kind of thing. But you can't, I've used the analogy in one of my books that it's kind of like being that child on the edge of the pool where you can jump in and you can see all the kids in the pool having so much fun, but it's so scary. But what I like to think about or remind people that are maybe standing on the edge of that pool, questioning whether it's time, whether they should, whether, all of that, is to kind of go through that process of evaluating what decision, brings you peace, and using prayer and scripture to help you have the wisdom for good discernment. Can you add anything to that as far as that process that someone might be going through?
Sure. Ultimately, it's so important to want to please God even more than ourselves or more than other people. And, just wanting to be obedient unto him, loving him so much that you want to be in his perfect will and his perfect plan and following the path that he has for you. And sometimes that means doing it afraid. It means stepping out into uncharted waters, but knowing that he's with you and knowing that he's leading you and guiding you. It's really really a faith move. It's all about faith, believing beyond what we can see, and just trusting his voice and trusting his plan, oftentimes above our very own. So it's really about a faith move. It's about making a faith walk and then trusting him completely, totally.
Yeah, and you're reminding me because for me, the journey has been about growing my faith and strengthening my trust in God. And I actually did a devotional that was like, do you believe that I'm God or not?
I have to read that.
Because it really changed my perspective. And when I started looking at it from the standpoint of, this is the God that created the world. He made me exactly the way he meant for me to be. I don't have to change or be anything that he didn't create me to be. That he's got my back no matter what. And even if I screw up, which I have many times, there's no doubt, but even if I screw up, he's there for me. And
Yes.
once we get to that place, it really offers a huge amount of freedom, does it not?
Yes, it does. I meet people all the time who are they're beating themselves up, for things that God has forgiven them for. God has moved on, and they're still in that place, still, beating themselves up about things they literally cannot change. And so when we get to the point of really understanding grace and understanding his love for us and understanding his mercy, it's very freeing. It allows us to live a much more content and life of freedom in him. And he desires us to be free in every area of our lives.
He does. Yeah, that's a big word too, freedom.
Freedom.
It's entirely different than what we've all been raised to believe freedom is, isn't it?
Yes, it's a freedom of, freedom from the past, freedom from guilt, freedom from shame, just freedom from those things that shackled us and limit us and keep us in just a complacent place, that things that really hinder our destiny. And so to be free, to be able to go forth and knowing that you're going to be you can be who God has called you and destined you to be, and that you can have the things that God has said that you can have, that you can do exactly what God says that you can do. And so oftentimes it takes us a journey. It's a journey to come to that place in our spiritual walk.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that I personally believe, and I like to remind people of, is that, wherever we are in our journey, we're right where we need to be. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we get dissatisfied or frustrated or just kind of bored with life. And I like to remind people that it might be because we're not fully in alignment with God and not doing what he's asking us to do. Or maybe there's just someone there right in front of us that he's asking us to take under our arm and show them, guide them, show them. I mean, there's just so many things out there. It's like the opportunities are unlimited. And sometimes we just get so focused on ourselves and our situation, we don't realize that he's really asking us to do something that may be mundane. Maybe it's a smile. Maybe it's holding the door for somebody. Maybe it's caring for that coworker that's across the hallway that's just really broken right now. And It's not about the job at all, right?
Right, exactly. Oftentimes, we're in God divinely positions. That's where he would have us to be, and he will use us, in any capacity. I find that oftentimes people are so focused on their next that they fail to really enjoy their now and allow God to get the glory out of their now, because it's all a part of the process. I think back to when I was working, in the pharmaceutical industry, when I was working with the HIV patients and going in and out of those clinics, those things really sensitized me to suffering, and really sensitized me to even helping people through a grieving season. So I didn't realize at that particular time that God was preparing me, for ministry. I was just doing a job, but it was all a part of the preparation process. process. And so that was 18 years that I needed to endure in order to properly be able to function in this now season.
Yeah, I loved that. How did you say that? We're so focused on the next, we're not
Next, yes,
now.
we negate the now.
Oh, that's really that's a powerful observation. I thank you for, yeah. I see a quote in there, a meme of some sort. Beautiful.
Thank you.
So,
Yes.
what else would you want our listeners to hear about your work, or a message that you would want to leave with them today?
You know, one of the foundations, I would say the foundation for me has always been a life of prayer. Prayer undergirds every major move, prayer undergirds, our now and our next. And so one of my favorite just times of meditation and is meditation and prayer. I just enjoy spending time in God's presence and hearing Him and seeking His direction. Sometimes He'll say wait, sometimes He'll say go forth, and sometimes He'll say no. And so we have to be willing to receive, what God says. And so I would just encourage the listeners to spend that quality time in prayer, that time where you commune with God and God communes with you. Oftentimes people think prayer is just a one-way communication, us telling God all of our wants and our needs. But He speaks to us in those quiet moments. He speaks to us through His word. And then when we go back into prayer, God will bring those things back to our remembrance. And so I would just, encourage the listeners to, don't negate the power of prayer. Prayer is just so powerful. It's just one of the greatest weapons that God has given unto us. I noticed that, in church, you can have all kinds of meetings, all kinds of events, and they'll be overflowing. But usually when it comes to the prayer meetings, they're usually the least attended, events or time of worship, but it is really the most important. And so I always encourage people to strengthen your prayer life, because prayer is going to undergird all the dreams. It's going to undergird everything that you desire. It's going to open the door for the things that you need. It's going to give access. And so a strong prayer life has certainly been a key for me in walking in purpose.
Oh, I could not agree more. It's, for me, it took me a while to learn that it wasn't that one-way conversation. God, this, God, I need this. Thank you for that. Just always that way. And to kind of make myself, not grab the phone until after I spent time in the Word, to not have the radio blaring in the morning, to just have quiet time while I'm, washing the dishes or whatever, to give Him time to speak to us. Because I think, what I realized at this point in my life is I think He was talking to me. I know He was all along, but I was too busy to listen because I was, there was always a TV blare and there's, all the things. And
yes, all those things.
And He just wants to be still, right? Just
Yes, He
know
just
that I'm
wants us to
God.
be still.
Mhm.
And He wants us to hold still and to be still,
Yeah.
to hear Him.
Yeah.
It's all in developing that greater level of intimacy with Him. The more time you spend with Him, the clearer you hear Him.
Amen. I love that. Yes. And there was another thought there, but it's escaped me as of now. So that's okay.
Sure.
So that's okay. So, Dr. Williams, Bren, if someone is listening today and they're like, oh, I need more of that. I've got to learn more about what, the book or what you've got going. How can they find you?
The best way is through my website, drbrenwilliams.org. That's DRBREN Williams .org. There you're able to access my book. You're able to purchase the book there. And the book is just a wonderful tool of just another way of empowering you to help you to, it enriches your life. It's educational. It's a wonderful tool to be able to bless and to empower you.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And before we sign off, I always love to ask my guests what if they have a verse or a scripture that they would like to share, one that maybe has special meaning for them. Do you happen to have one you'd like to share today?
Yes, my favorite verse is Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Oftentimes, we're trying to operate in our own strength. We're trying to handle everything, handle the careers, handle family life, handle ministry. We're trying to handle all of these things in our own strength. But that verse always refocuses me because it reminds me that it's not my strength, but it is his strength. And when we learn to lean and depend on his strength, and then that's him putting his super on our natural, and it just empowers us, it strengthens us, it renews our strength, because we're not leaning on our strength, we're not depleting the strength that we have, because our strength is limited, but his strength is unlimited. And so on my walk, I've just learned to lean into his strength and allow him to carry me through some seasons completely and totally. And then I'm able to walk knowing that he is my strength.
Yes, that's really beautiful. And I think it's that's one of those things that it takes us a while to learn sometimes. But I don't know about you, but I can look at so many different times in my life where he's planted in a seed for an idea of something. And then I'm like, oh, thanks God. And now, I've laughingly said, and he'll open that door for me, and I race through and leave him standing there holding the door going, wait a minute.
What?
I was going to help you with that. No wonder you're struggling so much. Come back. Right. So
Exactly. I've been there myself.
well, yes, it's a great reminder that in his strength, all things are possible, and
Absolutely.
and they happen in his timing, and that's another lesson for, that could be another whole episode, right?
It's all about his timing. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else you would like to share, that maybe something we didn't talk about that you would like to share today that we haven't talked about?
Well, it's just so many points in the book. I know one of the things that, oftentimes hinder us are distractions. And I just want to leave this point here. In life, there's so many things that can distract us, people, places, things. And, distractions are really basically a trick of the enemy to disfocus us and to take us off course, or even to delay us. And so we have to, number one, recognize them for what they are. We have to recognize them and realize that some things in our lives are just distractions. And then it's important to just, to remember, that God has a plan. Remember his plan, and not to allow the distractions, to overtake us, and just allow God to continue to, renew us and to revive us to continue to move forward. So I just want to encourage the listeners that everything that looks like a setback is not necessarily a setback. It may just be a distraction, and it could just be a setup for your greater success in Christ. And so it's just been such a joy to share with you on today, and I've enjoyed our conversation so much.
Oh, thank you so much for that. And yeah, that is such a powerful message that, and sometimes the things that we think are distractions really are the main focus. And, we get so set kind of on doing that thing that we think is so important. And in reality, it's that child that's distracting us, or,
Right.
in this season of my life, taking care of aging parents, or,
Sure.
whatever. I mean, those are our, I think there's a book I read at one point that, basically just said sometimes those distractions are our life, and
That's right.
we need to use the discernment to know, scrolling in Facebook, maybe not.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Having a beautiful conversation with a friend, very possibly.
Exactly.
Right?
Absolutely. That is so
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Yes, we have to remind ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you so much. This has been just a beautiful conversation, and I'm excited to check out the book and learn more about what you're doing. And
Thank you so much. And I'm certainly going to check out yours. And I
thank you.
look forward to being blessed by that. I
Oh,
thank you again for having me on your show.
it's such a blessing just to have the conversation, and I'm excited to see where God will take both of us next.
Yes, I
Right?
am too.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wow, there was just so much good stuff in there, wasn't there? Oh man, I love the idea of coming through a breakthrough so we can break free, so we can break forth to our destiny. Because really, folks, everything that God created us for is laid out, and if we just step into it with courage and let go of all of the things that hold us back, the distractions, the fear, all of that, then we can just truly live full out his purpose for our lives. We can, as I like to say, we can live our more, and that is so important. But there was just one really great nugget in there with a lot of good things, but one that really stuck out to me is that comment she made about how oftentimes people are so focused on their next thing that they forget or they fail to enjoy their now. Man, I've been there. Have you? Do you see yourself, or have you seen yourself where you were just so focused on what's coming that you missed some of the really great things in the now? I hope if you're in that place that you will really pray and ask God to open your eyes to the opportunities that are right in front of you today. So anyway, one of the other things that came up in this conversation was that conversation about trusting God. It kind of over and over, it seems to be a theme here, doesn't it? And I just wanted to plant the seed that I am having a conversation with the author of that journal, the Do You Believe That I Am God or Not? And we're talking about maybe having a special session just to talk about trusting God and what that looks like. So I don't have that prepared yet. It's not ready. Don't know exactly what it will be, but I just wanted to plant that seed. So kind of be watching for that. Again, as usual, if you enjoyed this session, but you may have missed a couple of points, if you want to, you can go to longingformore.xyz, sign up, get in there, and you can search for a word or a concept that you maybe want to go back and look at again. You will actually get to see it in written script, or you can go listen to it again once you know where it's at. All kinds of topics you can pull up on trust or distractions or destiny. I don't know that we talk about it in those terms so much, but there's all of the past episodes are out there and are searchable. So I encourage you to check that out if you're interested in doing so. So I just want to thank you so much for stopping by today. And if you're interested in learning more about Dr. Bren, I encourage you to go find Dr. Bren Williams on Facebook. That seems to be the best place to find her. So I just welcome you back in a couple of weeks. We're going to have another great conversation, and this one's kind of going to have a little bit of a twist, but it's something different I haven't done before, but I think you're really going to like it. So I'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Until then, go be blessed and always, always live your more.